From Megalodon's Nitro Fists to Predator's Cloaking Device, this is the complete Fortnite Mythic Gauntlet tier list. But we're not stopping at just gloves. Any mythic item that gives that gauntlet feel and wraps around the hand is getting ranked too. So let's get started. Let's start off this list with the Wolverine's Claws, which were introduced to the game in Chapter 2, Season 4. You could acquire these bad boys by defeating the iconic Marvel character near Slurpy Swamp and Weeping Woods. These mythic claws give you the power to melee attack both opponents and structures with repeated swipes, dealing 35 damage per attack. These claws also featured a spin slash, delivering 35 area damage, an air dash for a quick forward strike with a 5-second cooldown, and a dodge ability, which in my opinion was just broken as it had the same 5-second cooldown for evasive maneuvers. On top of that, Wolverine's Claws provided us with a passive 2 HP per second heal outside the storm, offering some Wolverine-style regeneration. They also granted a speed boost when equipped, making them a versatile choice for players seeking both offense and mobility. Removed at the end of Chapter 2, Season 5, several bosses later borrowed from Wolverine's playbook, incorporating similar abilities. While it wasn't the most overpowered item, in my opinion, it was a solid addition to the game with no major cons, comfortably earning its spot in the A tier. Introduced in Chapter 2 Season 5, after the highly anticipated Predator collab with Fortnite, Predator's cloaking device was supposed to be a game changer. The cloaking device was so hyped that Fortnite didn't even classify it as an item, but as a power. And honestly, as a fan, that kind of branding instantly caught my eye. Like, what makes this device so special? The only way to obtain Predator's cloaking device was by defeating Predator at the stealthy stronghold. But what do we get for all that effort? Well, once you get this cloaking device, it allows you to become invisible for 30 seconds. While the concept sounded incredible for sneaking up on enemies, we all know that this is Fortnite invisibility. You are about as invisible as a sweat rolling around in a red Ferrari. On top of that, Predator's cloaking device would deactivate as soon as we tried anything other than hold it, leaving us vulnerable if we tried to shoot or build. This mythic gauntlet certainly didn't live up to the hype surrounding its release. Last seen in Chapter 2, Season 6, the Predator's cloaking device is one mythic that's best left in the past, landing it in the F tier. Next up, we have Howler's Claws from Chapter 3, Season 4, which were a major part of the Fortnite Mares 2022 event. Securing them required only one simple step, emoting in front of the alteration altar. So after you danced like no one was watching, the Fortnite gods rewarded you with Howler's Claws. The claws came with some impressive abilities as they allowed you to dash forward at the cost of 20% stamina, making it easy to close the gap between you and your enemies. You could also swing the claws for 35 damage per hit. Unlike Wolverine's Claws, Howler's came with a recon ability, marking nearby players hiding around you every 20 seconds. I don't know how many times I died because some guy got these claws and found me in my perfect hiding spot. However, despite their fun mechanics, some fans like myself started calling them Walmart Wolverine Claws. On top of that, Fortnite had to vault them due to a bug that granted players wearing the claws invincibility for the whole game. Howler's Claws were ultimately removed at the end of Fortnite Mares 2022, and honestly, no one really misses them. C tier. Next, let's talk about Spider-Man's web shooters, which were added to the game in Chapter 3 Season 1. Spider-Man's web shooters could only be obtained by opening backpacks near spiderwebs scattered across the map, spawning with an 80% chance. These web shooters allowed you to swing through the air by shooting webs at surfaces and using them to travel quickly. The best part was that we didn't take full damage while using them, making them perfect for traveling across the map with ease, either to get away from enemies or to catch up with them. Like, I personally can't remember how many times these shooters have saved my life when I was stuck in a tight spot. With a minimum cooldown of 2 seconds and a maximum of 16 seconds, the web shooters were pretty responsive, but the 80 users limit before they were removed from the inventory could leave you hanging if you didn't manage them well. But with an abundance of backpacks all over the map, there was a high chance you would find these shooters again. Instant S tier. Next on the list is the Wildguard Relics Cloak Gauntlets, a Chapter 4 Season 3 mythic that could only be obtained by defeating the Wildguard Relic boss at the Rumble Ruins. These gauntlets are the mythic boss versions of the standard cloak gauntlets and offer a longer invisibility duration of 30 seconds with a reduced cooldown of just 20 seconds. However, despite the improved stats, the item fails to live up to the hype. The main drawback is that and visibility in Fortnite is yet again far from perfect, and the slight outline around the player still makes you visible to all your ops, which quite literally defeats the purpose of being stealthy. While in some map modes, the cloak gauntlets can be helpful for being sneaky, they don't bring anything to the table in terms of offensive or defensive abilities. And not gonna lie, I've left this item behind more times than I can count after beating the boss because it just feels so useless. In the end, I just don't think they make any real impact in the heat of battle. This is why they will be stuck in the D tier forever. Now let's shift our focus to this next Marvel collab with Iron Man's Repulsor Gauntlets, which debuted in Chapter 2, Season 4. The only way to get these bad boys was to take down Iron Man at Stark Industries. After getting the Repulsor Gauntlets, players could fire laser blasts dealing 40 damage per second with a soft aimbot feature that demolished both buildings and players with ease. The repulsors also allowed you to jump higher like Iron Man, with the ability to double jump every 20 seconds and negate all full damage. While they weren't the strongest Mythic Gauntlet, they gave you that Iron Man vibe we all love, and honestly, that's half the fun. After disappearing in Chapter 2, Season 5, these gauntlets left a hole in our hearts and a laser burn on our memories. But hey, at least we got to say, I love you 3000 before they vanished. B tier. Introduced in Chapter 5, Season 2 as part of the Avatar collaboration, Earthbending was a unique mythic obtained from earth shrines scattered around the map. It allowed you to offensively hurl rocks at your ops, dealing 85 damage while defensively creating a barrier similar to Todoroki's ice wall. While the concept sounded exciting, I feel like Fortnite's execution of Earthbending was a total letdown. The rock throwing ability had a noticeable delay, making it really hard to land hits in fast-paced combat, and the defensive barrier wasn't any better. Earthbending lacked the durability and versatility of other Mythic Gauntlets, leaving us exposed to flanking or vertical attacks. On top of that, the Mythic didn't provide any mobility or healing advantages, making it feel lackluster compared to other items launched in that season. Removed at the end of update 29.40. Earthbending hasn't been available since Chapter 5 Season 2, and honestly, I haven't been missing it at all. Earthbending's underwhelming utility and lack of impact earns it a solid spot in the D tier. Up next, we have War Machine's Arsenal from Chapter 5, Season 4, which was supposed to be the Temu version of Stark Tech. After dropping from Avengers chests and Stark armory pads, War Machine's Arsenal lets you fire both bullets and rockets, launching up to 8 rockets in a row, which is perfect for demolishing buildings while adding a 1.5x headshot multiplier on the bullets. The automatic reload made the Arsenal a powerful weapon, but let's face it, just like the movies, Iron Man's Repulsor is simply way cooler, flashier, and a lot more fun to use. War Machine's Arsenal, while not perfect, still got the job done, so yeah, B tier. Now let's talk about She-Hulk's Fists from Chapter 2 Season 4, and yeah, they were not quite what the name might lead you to imagine, but they still packed a punch regardless. Obtained by destroying Stark supply drones, She-Hulk's Fists let you unleash a 4-hit combo with damage increasing with each hit. You could also leap like Hulk, dealing damage on landing and dodge out of harm's way. On paper, the abilities looked really impressive, but they didn't deliver the damage or versatility of other mythics. As useful as the leap could be, it left you defenseless mid-air, and the 4-hit combo's close range was too much risk to be useful, and the 2 HP passive heal per second was simply not enough to make up for it. Vaulted after Chapter 2, Season 5, She-Hulk's Fists' limited utility and underwhelming combat usage secures it a spot in the C tier. Moving on, let's discuss one of the most unique mythics in this list. The Todoroki Ice Wall mythic was first introduced into the game in Chapter 4, Season 4 as part of the My Hero Academia collab, and it could be found in the All Might supply drops. Though not a traditional gauntlet, once activated, the Todoroki Ice Wall mythic wraps around your hand and lets you stomp the ground, creating multiple ice spikes with 800 HP in front of you, forming a solid wall of frozen chaos. On top of that, the Todoroki Ice Wall mythic also grants the player fall damage immunity, but the best part has to be the ability to yeet enemies off high ground with a knockback effect. Although it can also affect your teammates and they might end up launched into the abyss too, so good luck explaining that one. I personally had a hard time rating this mythic because it was truly one of the most innovative items to be introduced in the game, but despite all the cool utility, I think it lacked enough practicality to be a true game changer, so I will place it on the B tier. Next on the list is the Iron Man Combat Kit from Chapter 5 Season 4, which was obtained from Stark Industries chests and Stark mobile armories. This mythic was an absolute powerhouse with 2 deadly abilities. The repulsor attack blasted enemies with 24 damage energy shots that could be fired up to 12 times, while the unibeam unleashed a devastating charged beam attack, dealing 90 damage and ripping straight through structures. But keep in mind, the repulsor attack had a 3-second cooldown, while the cooldown for the unibeam was 18 seconds. Yeah, the cooldowns are a bit long, but I got this gauntlet whenever I could, cause it's just too good to pass on. Sure, sometimes it feels like these long cooldowns will ruin your game, but honestly, it just makes you focus on the game more and make every shot count. So, without a doubt, Iron Man Combat Kit's powerful offense and exceptional utility makes it an instant A tier in my books. Next on the list is one of the strongest mythic gauntlets of all time. Yeah, we are talking about Megalodon's Nitro Fists from Chapter 5, Season 3. To get your hands on these gauntlets, you needed to track down and defeat Megalodon himself. But unlike previous bosses in Fortnite, Megalodon didn't have a fixed location. Instead, he roamed within a general area near the southern part of the Season 3 map, specifically around Brutal Beachhead. While finding him could be a challenge, getting your hands on these powerful gauntlets was definitely worth the effort. Megalodon's Nitro Fists brought an insane mix of raw power and mobility with 3 distinct functions: punch, air punch, and uppercut. The basic punch delivered 55 damage, but by holding down the fire button, you could perform a combo of 3 devastating punches, dealing 55, 55, and 70 damage in succession while pushing forward. While used in midair, firing these fists would trigger the air punch, launching you 25 meters towards your aim point and dealing 70 damage on impact. I think the air punch was a real sleeper ability, dealing 20 damage to players, 90 damage against structures, and a 50 damage explosion radius for added destruction. Like, what other ability in the game did this much damage? And at last, pressing the aim button would trigger the uppercut, sending players flying up to 15 meters horizontally and 13 meters vertically. This move dealt 60 damage to enemies and surrounding structures in the way, but that's not all. The uppercut also dealt 500 damage to structures directly above the player, turning vertical fights into a nightmare for anyone above. Vaulted in Chapter 5, Season 4, Megalodon's Nitro Fist was considered one of the strongest items added to the game, solidifying its status in the S tier. And at last, but definitely not least, we have my favorite item in the video, Dr. Doom's Arcane Gauntlets from Chapter 2, Season 4. These gauntlets could only be obtained by eliminating the infamous Dr. Victor Von Doom at Doom's domain. These mythic gauntlets allowed us to shoot small blasts of explosive green energy, which were affected by gravity and would explode on impact. The blast could deal 75 damage per shot, and if you hit multiple opponents in close range, both would take the same damage. Talk about sharing the pain. The gauntlets also had a second attack, launching a mystical bomb that dealt 90 damage to players. But Mystic Bomb came with a hefty 11-second cooldown between uses, meaning you couldn't really just spam it. But if you used it perfectly, it was basically game over for anyone in your way. Vaulted in Chapter 2, Season 5, Dr. Doom's Arcane Gauntlets are sorely missed by the fans, but they left their mark as a solid S tier item during their time in the game.